Well, this was initiated by the Pittsburgh Symphony. The Pittsburgh Symphony contacted me sometime in 2011 and said, "We'd like you to improvise some music for 2 Charlie Chaplin films." But this would have gone completely against what Chaplin really stood for. Chaplin really felt that his music needed to enhance the films, and he also felt that it was necessary that the music didn't compete with what he was doing. It needn't be funny. In fact, he preferred if the music was not funny. So the idea of improvising something might not have been maybe the best thing to do. So I eventually convinced them, why don't you let me compose something? The 2 films, the first one immediately needed to be done, is called 1 a.m. In 1 a.m. he plays a gentleman who arrives home at 1 a.m. after a night of drinking, and all he wants to do is get inside and go to bed.
When Charlie Chaplin made 1 a.m., he was reported as saying, "One more film like that and it will be Goodbye Charlie," because it was an experiment. All of his other films were like plays, like sitcoms with a lot of characters. 1 a.m., a cab driver drops him off at his home, and the story of the film is he walks into his house and goes to bed. That's the story of a 25-minute film. The only problem is that because he's roaring drunk, everything, getting into his house, having a smoke, taking one last drink, becomes an almost insurmountable problem.
There's one scene in 1 a.m. where Chaplin continually tries to climb the steps. And whenever he reaches the top, something happens and he tumbles down the steps. or he'll slide down the banister. The challenge is, I'm a person who loves melody. I'm not a fan of atonal music. I love something to be pleasant and melodic. So the challenge was to create melodies that would fit these specific situations. I remember sitting there watching the film, and I had this little melody that sounded like a drunk person staggering. That's all I had at first, and that grew into... a melody, a tune, something that sticks into your head. So how can I make this coincide with the pratfalls that are happening? When he reaches the steps and he falls down. So he's climbing. Is when the pendulum hits him in the face and sends him falling down the steps. His second little tumble down the steps is very gentle. He just kind of slides down the banister. And a gentle... He gets up all this speed and runs like a maniac. And falls down. Lights a cigarette, throws the match away. The second film is the most widely rescored film of the Mutuals. It's called The Rink. And The Rink, Chaplin plays a waiter who, during his lunch break, goes to a roller skating rink and encounters a lovely young lady whose affections he tries to win by pretending that he is a gentleman rather than a waiter.
The Rink blew everybody away because by the time The Rink came out, Charlie Chaplin had been making films for going on 4 years, and he cranked out close to 50 of them. But nobody knew that he could roller skate like that. Who could have suspected? I mean, the joke in The Rink is that this clumsy-seeming guy who's causing havoc and fights and messes in the restaurant, when he gets on roller skates, suddenly looks like a dancer.
One of my favorite scenes in The Rink is where Chaplin asks a customer, "Cocktail, sir?" And he goes back to the kitchen to prepare a cocktail, and he mixes the drink in a drink shaker, and his entire body shakes with the exception of the mixer. So the perfect thing for this would have been some sort of rumba thing. And the rumba that I came up with is... One of the things that I tried to do with these films, the films are from 1916, and the music that would have been popular at this point is not jazz. Jazz music didn't become popular until 1917. The original Dixieland Jazz Band doesn't start making records until the following year. So I tried to create within genres that would have been appropriate at that time. The melody that came to me was it had to be something like a waltz, and I use a valse musette, which would have been French equivalent of that type of music back around the 1920s, the teens. And the melody that came into my head had this.
He's not only a wonderful musician, but he's a scholar of that era of music, and he continues that tradition in his work. They're wonderful, knowing, witty scores.
The thing that makes it so unique was perhaps the limitations that were placed upon it. Initially, it was just going to be for solo piano. And I convinced them to use my wife playing clarinet as well. Since then, I've used other instruments, and eventually I will orchestrate this for a full orchestra. But the plan is to take this to various places where people don't expect, and to get it to an audience that maybe would not normally go to see a silent film.
When you see silent movies accompanied well by live musicians, a strange thing happens. The movie itself becomes almost more present than a sound movie. because a sound movie is, after all, a mechanical event.
I tried to keep this in mind of beautiful melodies, elegant sounds, to try to create something that would be what Chaplin would have approved of. And I really hope that what I've done is kind of done a collaboration beyond the grave with him.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful. But we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!